Hi, Algebra 1. So this is lesson number 5, solving 1 and 2-step equations. So on slide number 4, you have some notes that you should be taking. I'm missing about 3 bullet points, but those bullet points should be in your notes, okay? So the purpose of solving an equation is to find the value of the missing variable. Remember that a variable is a letter, represents a number that we don't know, and value means a number. So we're trying to find out what that letter equals. What is the number that that letter equals, right? In order to do that, okay, we have to use something called the property of equality. So the property of equality states that whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other. And we use the property of equality when we're using inverse operations. Now you guys may have seen this box on slide number 5. Feel free to give it like its own kind of like boxing situation in your notes. You're going to be using this a lot. This is going to kind of be like your solving Bible, right? So when we use addition, the opposite of addition is subtraction, the same way that the opposite of subtraction is addition, okay? When we use multiplication, the opposite of multiplication is division, the same way the opposite of division is multiplication. And when we have something squared, the opposite of something squared is taking the square root of it. The same way, in order to get rid of that square root, we just square it, okay? You don't have to worry about this last one during this point of the school year, but it'll come up later on, most importantly, okay? I will, however, show you some examples of how to use this. Now, the arrow is facing both ways because these are inverses of one another. Inverse means the opposite, okay? So these are the opposite operations for each. I'm sorry, guys, my cat. Okay, so we have some model problems. I do believe that this is listed on a later slide. So I just wanted to show you, right? So this first example we have is 2x equals 10. Well, when a number and a letter are together, they're together based on multiplication. And the opposite of multiplication is division. So if I have 2 times x equals 10, that means I want to divide 2 on both sides to get it out the way. Now we want to move the 2 because we want to leave the x there. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2. Now it looks like a fraction, but a fraction is division, okay? So you can set it up like this. The 2's cancel out. Finally, I'm left with, so since this crossed out, I'm left with x equals 10 divided by 2. Well, we know that 10 divided by 2 is equal to 5. So my answer listed from left to right is x equals 5. Now it's very important that when you're solving, your variable is on the left side because we read this as a statement, x equals 5, okay? Let's go on to the next one. We have 3 minus x equals 13, okay? I have x subtracting from 3. Now, it looks like the x is negative, but this 3 is positive, right? So it's plus 3 minus x, okay? I want to leave this x here because, again, the variable should be on the left side. How would I move this 3? Well, there's an imaginary positive sign here. And if I look at my inverse operations, the opposite of addition is subtraction. So I'm going to go right ahead and subtract 3 from both sides, okay? Now, since these are inverses, right? Addition or subtraction, these cancel. Be careful, that negative sign belongs to this x, not to the 3. So when I bring this down, I'm going to get negative x equals, now I have to solve this over here. 13 minus 3 is 10. Now, I'm not done because this x is still negative. I cannot state a final answer like this with a negative x. So basically what's happening here is this x is getting multiplied by an imaginary negative 1, okay? So if it's multiplication, the opposite is division. Divide by negative 1 on both sides. That cancels. I get x equals negative 10 because 10 divided by negative 1 is negative 10, okay? Number 3, 4y minus 9 equals 15. That looks like it's 4 times y minus 9 equals 15. Now, some of you guys might be thinking, oh, why don't I just divide 4 on both sides? I can't do that yet. The only time I can divide is when it's like the final step by itself. Otherwise, I would have to divide everything by 4, okay? So the first thing I'm going to focus on is getting this 9 out of the way. Since it's subtracting, the opposite is adding, so I'm going to go right ahead and add 9 to both sides. Okay, now keep in mind, anytime I perform an inverse operation, I'm keeping the property of equality in mind. Whatever I do to one side, I'm doing to the other. Okay, that's how I maintain the balance of the equation. So these cancel because they're opposites. So I'm left with, bring that down, right? 4y equals, now what is 15 plus 9? Well, it's 24. Okay, now this is beginning to look a lot like this problem right here, okay? Since it's just the 4 and the y alone, that is multiplication, because the only way they can be together is by multiplication. So the opposite of multiplication is division. I'm going to divide by 4 on both sides. That cancels. I'm left with y equals, well, what is 24 divided by 4? The answer is 6. And again, my answer is listed from left to right, y equals 6, okay? And finally, I have this last example, oops, sorry about that, okay? I have squared and square root. So let's see what happens here. So I have 2x squared equals 50. This x is being squared, and it looks like in order for these two to be together, it's being held together by multiplication. Just like this step, I'm gonna go ahead and divide that 2 first. Get it out the way, okay? Whatever I do to one side, I do the other, divided by 2, okay? So let me move this up just a little bit right there, okay? So then I'm left with x squared equals 50, okay? And again, my variable needs to be alone. If it's squared, that means that there's 2 of them. The opposite of squared is square root. So I'm going to go ahead and take the square root of both sides, okay? So when I take the square root of something squared, it cancels out that exponent of a 2, and all I'm left with is just x, okay? And if you plug it into your calculator, you'll see that the square root of 50 is 25. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my final answer. Thank you for watching. Please make sure that you take notes on everything that was done in this video.